All right, we're going to get started here. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for our presentation regarding protecting your family and assets and home. Today's discussion will be focused around the importance of reviewing your estate planning and personal insurance. Now, with the current pandemic and certain uncertain times right now, we are seeing a major influx and success with families wanting to review their current policies and trust to get their affairs in order. And I'm so proud to have a business partner like Allison Kierman, who's incredibly sophisticated, patient, and thoughtful with her clients. And I know firsthand because she is my estate planning attorney, and without hesitation, I feel extremely comfortable to referring her to my friends, my family, and my business associates. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Allison Kierman.
Hi, thanks so much everybody for joining us, and thanks Analise for your kind words. I think many of you are also feeling what Anna and I are feeling right now, which is very busy in a positive way, but also sort of with the need to try to get people to feel comfortable with what they have, both in terms of their estate plans, their health insurance, their life insurance, their home and auto coverage, and with their financial planning. So I think we're all doing a lot of client meetings right now just to sort of check in with people and let people talk to someone else besides their family for the first time in a couple of weeks, and also just to feel more confident. So we wanted to talk to you about what we're seeing in terms of questions and comments from clients recently, so that if you have your own personal questions or you have clients with questions, you can sort of answer them, or we could be a resource for that client. And we also want to get feedback from you. So if you have questions later at the end, please chime in and let us know. We want to hear what you're thinking and doing as well. I'm not sure what happened to the slideshow. So some of you, most of you know, I do estate planning and probate. And what that really means is that I talk to people all day, every day about their wills and trusts, their financial and medical powers of attorney, their medical directives, helping them get organized during the course of their life. And then for people who aren't as organized or haven't had the opportunity or time to put forethought into their planning, I also help with probate and with trust administration. So I know that most of you sort of know what these types of documents are and what these words mean, so I don't want to really bore you. But for most people, anybody who's ever thought about having a plan, now is the time. Right? So we're definitely seeing an uptake in clients just because the news, regardless of the channel you watch or the social media feed you're on, the news out there is maybe we should get organized and start thinking about our wishes. So that's what we're doing. But what the news is really causing me to think about and talk about with clients a lot is more of the medical planning. So the medical directives that I'm talking to people about now are very different than the medical directives I was talking with clients about a year ago. So by medical directives, I really mean sort of three types of documents. You have a medical power of attorney, a living will, and a HIPAA authorization. So your medical power of attorney allows you to appoint an agent in the event of a medical emergency. Right now, what I'm seeing a lot is, what are your medical wishes if what you have is a coronavirus? So people don't necessarily realize that if you have a high-risk situation, the coronavirus can affect you in multiple different ways. And this is important for people who have specific wishes. So some clients believe I would never want a blood transfusion, but in the case of a coronavirus, they're finding that there may be an exception, both socially and from a religious basis for that, just because it's such a novel disease. And we're not completely sure where it comes from and how people are tolerating the condition. And because there is a very strong hope and likelihood of recovery, we're changing directives to allow for that likelihood of recovery. But the biggest issue that I see is if you have a medical power of attorney, you have to take it with you when you go to the hospital in the first instance. If everybody has seen Arizona's numbers, this week has not been good in terms of new cases and an uptick in hospital and ICU stays, which means that once you go, you don't get to leave, get your documents, get organized, pack a bag, and go back. You are there, you are quarantined, and you're not allowed to have visitors or people come and see you. So you have to take your documents with you if you wish for them to be honored. And importantly, if you wish for your family to be able to communicate with your medical practitioners. The living will. So the living will is typically a document that most people don't spend a tremendous amount of time with. It is 2 pages. It says that if you have a terminal illness, an incurable condition, or you're in a vegetative state, you do not want prolonged life support. The very beginning of the virus, when it started in March, I had an uptick in doctors who came into my office, and we spent a lot of time talking about the living will, because they said the treatment plan for the coronavirus is very different than a regular treatment plan. So they're seeing medically induced comas for more than 30 days. So a true vegetative state. It's not potentially incurable or terminal, but they don't know. And so what does that definition in the living will mean in today's terms? So what I'm asking clients is, do you want invasive medical treatment? And if so, under what circumstances? If yes, this is what I understand could be the ramifications in terms of either a longer term medical stay or in terms of needing rehabilitation. There's also an expense associated with that. So you have to be prepared for what that means. But for people who don't want invasive treatment, we're also going to make that very clear, that no invasive treatment means at any time under any circumstance, including things like a novel disease. I get to have really exciting conversations with my clients, if you could tell. It's a bit depressing. The other big thing that I'm talking to clients now about is HIPAA authorizations. So a HIPAA authorization is another short document that I didn't typically spend a lot of time talking about with clients. It's a privacy waiver. It says that if you have a medical condition, the individual is designated are allowed to receive information regarding your medical treatment. They can't make decisions, but they can receive information. This is typically good for people who don't live in the same place. So if dad in Florida gets sick and goes to the hospital, you want to call the hospital and say, how sick is dad? Should I be coming, or he's going home tomorrow, right? There's a really big difference in terms of your behavior. So the HIPAA authorization allows that, you to make that decision. What I find is really important is the HIPAA authorization for young adults. So this time last year, what I was talking to clients about is your 18-year-old children need to sign a HIPAA waiver, because when they go to college, if something happens to them, you're going to want to be able to talk to them. So the very sad commentary on that is the likelihood of a young woman to be sexually assaulted at college happens between the months of September and November. So if you have a young woman as a child, you really want for her to sign a HIPAA authorization, because if something horrible happens to her, you're going to want the hospital to call you in the college town she's in. What that means in today's terms, many colleges may be online in the fall, but single people really need a HIPAA authorization. So this is anyone at any age. Your 35-year-old adult child who's not married and lives alone might need an authorization, because if he or she goes to the hospital, you again are going to want information about them. And if they are so sick or in ICU or on an intubator, they're not going to be able to talk to you. And so you're going to want to be able to have access to that information. Estate planning is about getting organized and being in a plan. And it can require hard conversations, both at home and also in my office or on video conference. And we want to try to have those hard conversations, because once you have a medical event, you can't make a change. So we have to be prepared and be organized, and that's what I'm here to help do. I also work with Analise, because that's what she does also, is help people get organized and have a plan. And I'll let her talk to you now about what that's meaning for her and her client conversations in today's terms.
Thank you, Allison. And again, my name is Anna, and I'm with Brown & Brown Insurance. And I specialize in providing personal solutions for successful individuals and families with complex insurance needs. Today I'll be speaking about the importance of reviewing your personal insurance with your agent on an annual basis. An annual review is critical to gain insight into my client's risk exposures and to design a personal insurance program to best address my clients' needs and ultimately protect their largest assets and wealth. We will review the 3 gaps in coverage that I typically see with a new client who has not received an annual insurance review with their current agent. So the first gap in coverage is home and collections policies. Many homeowners purchase an insurance policy when they first move into their house, right? But they may not understand the importance of periodically reviewing or reassessing their needs. And, you know, it's an oversight that can ultimately lead to a large gap in coverage. For instance, if you insure your home at $500,000 when you first purchased it, and then a decade later, the cost of rebuilding that home may cost $750,000 to rebuild. So that's a $250,000 gap in coverage, which could leave you without proper insurance and ultimately the resources to rebuild in the case of an event. With the pandemic that we are currently facing, many families are renovating their homes. Now, or upgrading is another reason why you may want to have an insurance review. It can ensure that your home and belongings are fully protected and that your coverage is keeping up with your current needs. Everything from new furniture to a kitchen upgrade can have an effect and affect the value of your family's home. Now, regarding fine arts and jewelry, the possessions that you may keep may be worth so much more than dollars and cents, right? Whether you have a vast, carefully curated art and wine collection or 1 or 2 precious pieces of jewelry or something in between, ample and customized protection is critical. Let me turn this page here really quick. Oh, I'm sorry, Allison, did you turn the page already?
I tried to give you back remote control access.
Oh, perfect, okay. And then the second gap in coverage is inadequate excess liability limits, also known as an umbrella. So your significant assets and unique lifestyle arising from factors like owning multiple homes, or if you employ domestic staff, or if you sit on a nonprofit board, can expose you to an above average number of liability risks. Lost lawsuits hold the power to threaten not only your existing wealth and future earnings, but also the legacy intended for future generations. So the excess liability policy is designed to protect that legacy against claims of not only personal injury, but bodily injury and property damage of others that you may be, or anyone in your family may be held liable for. Now, the third gap in coverage is no coverage for LLCs and trusts when property is held by these entities. And this is where Allison and I work very closely together. So in your annual review, your current agent should be asking if there are any updates or changes to your trusts and confirming if your home has the proper additional interests on the policy. Putting your home in the trust can have real benefits to your estate planning and protecting the interests of all parties to the home. And ultimately ensuring that they'll be effectively covered by the policy. Also, the last note is really keeping in mind that when the home is listed in the trust, it can be passed down to your beneficiaries without having to pass through the time and expense of probate. So, we really appreciate you all taking the time and spending with Alice and myself. We really wanted to keep it short and sweet and really allow for any comments, questions, or concerns for us. And let me see here. Oh, that was the last slide. So are there any questions or concerns for either Allison or myself?